It's another episode of the Better Learning Podcast. I'm so excited about this one. We've been changing our format on some of these to talk about school related movies or TV shows. It's really been movies, but this one is like near and dear to my heart of talking about Ted Lasso. So this episode is going to be about Ted Lasso. I'm going to be joined Carla Cummins as a co-host. Carla, how's it going?
Not too shabby. Sorry, I had to get a drink real quick. Wet my whistle.
I have
Excellent.
I'm watching you and I waited until you were getting ready to take a drink
I
before
I felt like you were a waiter at a
I
restaurant right there.
and we are joined. Our guest today is Heidie Ciesielski. She is a superintendent at Fenton School District in Michigan.
Yeah,
And Heidi, how's it going?
it's going great. We are pushing through, ready for Friday. We get to go on winter break after that, so everybody's very excited.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, so we're recording at the end of 2024. This will come out early 2025. And so Ted Lasso. I mean,
yeah.
is there anything better?
No, no, he is one of my icons, and I think the show came out right at the right time that everybody needed him. And like I told you guys before, he's kind of lived rent free in my head for ever since he came out in 2020.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it was like perfect timing. I felt like when
oh
it
yeah,
launched, it was like this really
yeah,
slow thing. Apple
yep,
TV wasn't really that big, and they were
yep,
changing their method of like rolling out one episode at a time
yeah,
per
yeah,
week.
yeah.
And then I felt like everyone started talking about it and saying, "Have you seen the show Ted Lasso?" At least that's how it hit my radar. And yeah, I got hooked.
Yeah, for sure. He's easy to get hooked on, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Carl and I, we were talking about, beforehand, like we actually with our company K-12, we like to do different like quarterly types of like leadership, development types of things with our team. So watching when the third season of Ted Lasso came out, we actually watched it together as a team and talked through the episodes in our team meetings, and there are a lot of lessons learned.
Great nuggets. I mean, great nuggets throughout, especially that third season, because everybody had kind of gotten hooked on it by that point, and everybody was just waiting for the next, leadership awesome thing to be, remind you of what life is supposed to be about. And just perspective changing too. It was just, yeah, I agree. And the third season too, you knew it was the last season because they had said, they were kind of done. And so everybody kind of held on to it a little bit longer than what a normal TV season would be, I think. Apple
Yeah.
was genius that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear the news though? Like
Yeah, yeah. They're in
they're
No,
talks
what
to bring it
news?
they're
out a fourth.
doing
Yeah,
yeah, a fourth season is coming. I'm kind of
Oh,
torn. I
yeah,
as much as I was sad it was like wrapping up, I felt like they wrapped it up. Like it
they
felt
really
like
did.
it was intentionally done to do three seasons.
Yeah, I agree.
they
And
did a beautiful job
yep,
wrapping it up. And to like I did end up we did the third season, but ended up watching all of them. And I think the character development, like where they all ended with where they had developed the characters to, was just like a sweet spot for all of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
Yeah.
all right. So, yeah, this show for me is, yeah, there's so much. In some ways, I do feel like the show, like I was like the perfect demographic of who this
oh
show
yeah,
was made for.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
age wise, growing up in kind of the Midwest, like he has a lot
yep,
of Midwest Chicago. I grew up Chicago
yep,
area.
yep.
Um, so I feel like I got like an extra element to this show that now as I'm like rewatching it with my 12-year-old, which may be
Yeah,
questionable
yeah,
parenting.
yeah.
Um,
My 16-year-old and I watched it. And well, my 20-year-old, well, both my kids, but I have a 20 and a 16-year-old. But even though there's questionable language, there's so much other good things in there. Yeah, it's definitely worthwhile, especially if you want your kids to be good people, and see the good in people. So I think it's a great show for that.
They hear it and see it, Kevin. I think you're okay.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. I mean,
I hate to say it, but
yeah. I mean,
I
I
mean
still
it's
not showing my 8-year-old. My 17-year-old doesn't have the attention span to watch stuff like this.
Really? Yeah.
But
It's funny.
he's been around it. I feel like he's picked up enough of it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely all in. Now, my husband hasn't watched every episode, but he would catch it when my kids and I were watching it. And then I made him read the book. I made him, along with all of my administrators, read the book. So it was, he's a closet fan, I think. I'm way out there, I'm flaming Ted Lasso. So he's still in the closet when it comes to Ted
Okay.
Lasso.
All right. So
Yeah.
hopefully everyone who's listening to this has watched at least some of Ted Lasso. But if you have not, and you're like, "What? Why are these people crazy about Ted Lasso?" The premise of the show is that he's an American football coach, a college coach, and he gets hired by a Premier League soccer football team in the UK, in England, to go there, and he doesn't know anything about soccer. And so it's this kind of like fish out of water type of thing, but can like that skill set of a coach transfer, into a different culture and into a different sport. And it's a mix of like funny and great character development. Anything
Yeah.
else like you would want to tell somebody who hasn't? What do you guys tell people who haven't seen it?
Yeah, I think it's, again, I think you talked about it perfectly in the demographic because, there's one-liners in that show that, that demographic of 40 to, 50-ish get very well because he has a lot of those references, Midwest references. But it's entertaining in the fact that he's just such a good dude. He's just such a good dude and he tries very hard to be a good dude, even though he's human. And I think that's the best part of it. Yeah.
I'm like, I was going with the he's human sort of part of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that that's the biggest thing that I walked away with is like, you recognize sometimes you just have to put on a face for your team, right?
Yeah.
And he does that an awful lot throughout even, several of the episodes, and to be able to recognize what you go through in the background and what each of the characters goes through in the background as they're developing it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree.
All right. We have award categories. I don't know how this is going to apply, so but that's all right.
Yeah.
We'll figure out our way.
Yeah.
But the first one is we call it the John Keating Award, and it's really that Robin Williams character in Dead Poet Society. Is there like a teacher or a mentor that stands out? The obvious one is Ted Lasso as being that. Are there even other ones that we should consider in this category?
I think so.
Keely.
Yeah, Keely, I think she's a good one. I also think Beard, in his own weird way, is a good teacher. And because he kind of holds that, he's so knowledgeable about everything and he's so intelligent, he kind of has that teacher aspect to himself too. So I definitely think there's nuances of having that John Keating Award in many of the characters when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can throw Rebecca in there too
Yeah.
with
Yep.
Keeley of just
Yep.
like being the mentor and
Yep.
wanting Sarah to move on,
Yeah.
and grow.
I think the message there too, just like the John Keating Award, is there's leaders in all of us. It's just how it kind of comes out and manifests itself. And because everybody, you can see leadership start to grow in everyone,
Mhm.
in all the characters, even the main characters for sure, but even the subset characters and some of the players on the team, you can start to see that leadership pop out.
Yeah. Yep.
Sure.
Is our winner Ted Lasso?
Yeah, I would say. Yeah.
No,
No.
Carl, who would your vote be
No,
for?
I think it's by far like, okay, so if it were me, I would pick Keeley
Yeah.
or Roy Kent too. Like, I don't know because I don't know. I'll
Yeah.
challenge y'all both, but
Yeah,
Ted Lasso is awesome, but there's just things, in different people that you
yeah.
see.
I mean, Roy Kent, when he became a coach, I mean, definitely as a captain, but as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely
Yeah.
did. He tried to figure out how to. I don't know. That's a weird one. I mean, like
Yeah.
Ted was so intentional of like wanting to connect,
Yeah.
and then when Roy Kent was like, "This is my way," and
Yeah.
it was almost like he was like,
He almost strong arms you into it, right? But
"Yeah,
then he is able to recognize the characteristics of each individual and what makes them tick, and to be able to cater to that in order to engage him and to be able to get done what he needed to the team to get done. Like, he did such a great job at individualizing things. I don't know. I mean, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of options there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I would agree with you there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So if we go on to the cliques, are there any like iconic stereotypes that were reinforced on the show? Um,
Yeah,
there's
for
definitely.
sure. I mean, the whole idea of, you know, the stereotypical, you know, athlete or jock, so to speak, you know, they played the role very well, you know, a football player or somebody who was lived and died their life with around that sport. So that I think those were some cliques or some iconic stereotypes. You know, the whole girl power thing between Keely and Hannah,
Yeah.
you know, or Waddingham or, you know,
Yeah.
Rebecca,
Rebecca.
I should
Yeah.
say. That was that whole girl power kind of clique type of thing. And you even saw it at that last episode where, you know, she's proposing a women's team. So you see that. And you see that just that kind of brotherly scenario when it comes to Ted Lasso and Beard. There's all kinds in this movie. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Even to like the local fans, you know, in the
Yeah.
pub, like you can
Oh
kind
yeah.
of see
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it even like, you know, in local communities around high school sports, you'll
Oh, for
see,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
the ones there. And then I think even within the players too, you saw kind of the groups, whether it was like by country,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
You
where
did, Sam.
Yeah, and definitely that melting pot of kind of all types of people coming together for a common goal and a common good. That was kind of woven throughout that team for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, the beginning, the hatred for what's his name, Jamie, right?
Yeah,
Wait, was
yeah.
that his name?
Jamie
Yeah.
Tart.
yeah,
Yeah,
Jamie,
yeah. He
yeah,
sent him
You,
to a different team, right?
hmm
yeah,
Yep.
and the reporters too. There was a
Yeah.
little,
Oh,
you
that's
know,
true.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah. All right, is there a class clown, somebody who like steals the show, maybe, and you know, I mean, Ted has a lot of the humor, but is there somebody who doesn't have as big of a role, but but gets like that comic relief
Roy
component to
Kent.
it?
I
I'm
mean,
like Roy
Kent,
Kent
yeah,
by
yeah.
far.
By far. Roy Kent by far is the funniest. And some of his reactions are just spot on. You know, the whole episode where he had to find his niece a dentist for his niece
Oh,
because she
so
had
good.
halitosis. So good, so good. And his response to people when they would open the door. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just, he's a great character. He's the kind of character that you want to be. Like, I want to Roy Kent people sometimes so badly as superintendent, but you know, you just can't, right? So he's a great character. I loved his character.
Well, when you decide to, you call me so I can be there.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, I
I,
mean, I think Roy Kent by far
yeah,
would be
Yeah.
the class clown for sure.
for sure.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't
there,
know though, but you have Beard too. Sometimes
Yeah.
pipes in there with
yeah.
Yeah.
like
His humor is kind of weird though.
well,
Yeah.
he's
That
weird. His whole
he's
character
so
is
yeah, his
weird.
whole character
Yeah.
is very
Yes.
weird.
Yes.
I don't know if there wasn't a weird episode with him every single
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had to really kind of, you know, it was dry and intelligent humor, you know, but I
Mhm.
think he was funny at times too. But to me, hands down, the class clown, and he didn't really fill the role that way in a traditional way, but Roy Kent was just hands down the funniest scenario there.
Yeah.
His use of expletives were, you know, fantastic.
I'm a
Fantastic.
fan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. All right, along
Yeah.
those lines with Roy Kent, are you either of you watching the show Shrinking
Yes.
on Apple?
Yes.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's a
Is it
great show
good?
too.
It's
So
really
good.
funny. I mean,
It's
it's I
really
think
good.
the same writers.
Absolutely. Same writers and same overall, hey, we need to be good people but funny. Gosh.
Yeah,
So
And it's called Shrinking.
Shrinking.
yes.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's got
But and in the second season, Roy Kent, or the actor Roy Kent is in
Yeah.
there, and but I
Yeah.
just can't see him in the
Totally
role.
different. Yeah,
Totally
totally
different. Yeah.
different role. Yeah, totally different role.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's weird seeing him in anything
Yeah.
other than Roy Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. So the next one is, and this is a little harder because it's a series, but we call it like the homecoming scene, or like, is there like a
Yeah.
big like climatic scene, at, that really has a big impact in there. I don't know, maybe we can do it by season, or because I feel like every episode there were some, but was there like any like big moment that
The bar scene. I think that one, when I kind of looked at the
oh
overall, the bar
yes.
scene for
Oh, that's a
sure.
great one.
Yeah,
The
you know,
darts one, is that what you're talking
yeah,
about? The darts in the bar?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. When he he beat the ex-husband, in a game of darts, and used really great eloquent speech the whole time, and quotes from Walt Whitman. Who doesn't love anybody who quotes Walt Whitman? So yeah, no, I think that, to me, that would have been the homecoming scene of all three seasons, because I think it changed the perspective too of Rebecca in that relationship.
Yeah, that was kind of like that turning point of
Yeah.
she didn't trust him. She was still at
Yep.
that point like
Yep.
thought he was hired as a joke, and
Yep. Yep.
she started really believing him after that. Yeah. Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Um, my first thought was kind of the end of the first season, like when they lost
Oh yeah.
to Jamie's new team, and
Yep.
yeah, how they had tied it up, and then Jamie came back and got an assist
Yeah.
on the one.
And you have like Nate too, who, was that transition with him too.
Yeah.
And he kind of sold him out. That was a good one too. Yeah.
Well, I think that when Roy hugs Jamie, right? So Roy, golly, I
Oh,
don't remember the whole thing, the whole
uh,
what led up to it, but it was like Jamie's dad was a jerk, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so he saw him berating him or whatever in the locker room, and to see Roy's heart soften because he was such an asshole, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To Jamie. I think
yeah.
that was one of the
That
biggest
was
ones.
so powerful. I remember watching that the first time through. I'm like, this was like one of the most powerful moments I remember of like watching like a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the idea that you had this extreme masculine character, being vulnerable for a guy that needed it at the time. It was very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
My kids already I mean, they make fun of me because I tear up on like stupid
Oh
like
yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
commercials and stuff
that
like
made me
that.
teary-eyed, that
for
Yeah.
scene.
sure. Yeah.
Well, because you recognize too, like we've talked about this. This is our third podcast today, Heidi. I don't know if we're supposed to say that or not, but you recognize like how much our parents, and too, even as adults, right? How much our parents impact what we do, and and our path forward when we're younger. And I mean, Jamie's character is young, like he's a young athlete, and
Right.
so to know like what he's gone
For sure.
through to get
For
him to
sure.
where he is.
Yeah. And to relate that to public schools, we see it all the time.
Yeah.
The
Oh, that.
panic attack one, right, is the other
That was
one.
a good one. That was a very good one.
Hmm.
um I mean, and for Rebecca to recognize it, to see it, and to follow Ted out, because I think there were a couple different scenes, but the one that I'm thinking of, she followed him out of the bar and helped him, right? And
Yeah.
she
Yep.
wasn't friendly, and that might be in the same bar scene now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, I think it was different, but I think that was definitely momentous for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I love your darts one. I would go. That gets my vote.
Yeah.
The dart scene
That
and
one
the
too. Yeah. Be judgmental, don't be curious, not
be
judgmental.
curious.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
that was,
that is. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. I would go that one. But
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
okay. All right. This is gonna be a really tough one. We call it the one-liner.
Yeah.
Like, was there a line or dialogue that stood the test of time? Like most memorable, funny, heartfelt quotes. I mean, we literally know there's books written
Yeah. There's books written.
about this show. But is there one for you? Is there a one-liner? Is there like a dialogue to you that is your favorite?
There's so many. Like
There,
that was,
there
I'm
are.
not sure I could
It's
pick
hard.
that one. There's so many. I mean, the one where the Walt Whitman quote that he throws out there is a great one, but just, Roy's many uses of the F word. I mean, and I know that seems pretty simplistic or barbaric, but I mean, it comes across in so many different ways. And I absolutely love the one-liners, you know, that they throw in nonchalantly. Like when Ted's going on a kind of a coaching, like, hey, you gotta, you know, do this or you gotta do that. And he'll throw a one-liner in there. And oftentimes only, you know, people in their 40s or 50s would get it because he, you know, references things like Led Zeppelin and, you know, all those types of things that are, you know, things we would all get. There's so many of them. Like you can rewatch an episode and be like, oh, that was a great one-liner. You
Hmm.
know, there's so many, so many.
All right. The one for me, and I know this is probably like, I've done a deep dive on this. Like I've spent like an hour of my life going on the speech that he gives to Jamie about practice when he's hurt. And I don't know if you guys, if both of you know the
Trying to
context,
remember it.
um, but it was on. Actually, I've probably spent more than an hour on this now that I really think
You
about it.
can't admit this, Kevin.
Okay, all right. So, but it's so there. He talks about practice. He's like, we're talking about practice. We're not talking about on the field. We're talking about practice. And but you can't go out there because you're hurt. And the meaning behind this. All right. Do you guys know any of this, or should I give a
Yeah,
little?
no,
No,
I know exactly
tell
what
us.
you're talking
Okay.
about.
All right. So what he does is almost word for word, he is repeating an Iverson press conference.
Yep.
And Allen Iverson's a basketball player, and word for word, like you can go and you can see it. It is like it was exactly the way this press conference went, and the press conference became like a meme, and it's like one that like like has a place in society on there. But the fact that he was able to pull that out and put it into the context of this show was like so perfect
Mhm.
into what was happening in there. And the point of like I've watched YouTube videos on it. He and Beard were on a podcast with Brene Brown
Yeah.
talking specifically about this one. And the episode was about oh man, it was about alliterations in there. So the whole episode was about words and how like words go together and the meaning of words, and to just have that layered on was probably my like probably the deepest dive I've ever gone into like how impactful and intentional the screenwriting and the writing was on the show. And to me it was just like perfect. Like
I
Yeah.
it
feel
could
like you
not
have
have
to
been
put
done
a
any better.
I feel like you have to put a link to that scene
I'll
in
do
the
it.
show
I'll
notes
do
Yeah.
a link to
because
the scene, and I'll do a link to the YouTube video
Yeah.
that also broke it down because he had
yeah,
an interview specifically
Yeah.
about that
practice.
Yeah.
in there.
It's mind blown. It was a little bit of a mind blow when you figured out when well, and you didn't know it at first, like you didn't remember it. And then when they connected the two, I showed my son and he was like, that is genius. I was like, I know it is genius. It is really genius.
Yeah, and when he was doing it, like I'm cracking up because I'm like I can't believe like this is the Allen Iverson, but then like how it was layered on. Now you guys know a little bit about. I feel like I shared too much there.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, I'm questioning the
Yeah.
deep dive, but I got
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I know,
Uh,
Kevin. I know you well enough to know that you did deep dive that.
Oh,
Even better, I did it with Maggie, my 12-year-old.
there
So
you
because I had to explain to her, like, so then it
Yeah.
got into the whole story of like who Allen Iverson is,
Yeah,
and
right,
then
right.
even the
And why?
backstory of,
Yeah.
oh,
But did she stick around for the whole thing? Like, if
no,
you
no, like that's
okay,
when
I was gonna say, don't drag poor Maggie into this. She's a child.
She could care less too about that interview and all that good stuff.
yeah,
She's like, Dad, I'm over it.
Yeah.
You do this.
yeah, yeah. All right, one last thing on that.
Okay.
So when Allen Iverson was in that press conference, which I did not know, the reason he didn't go to practice was because one of his friends was just shot.
Yeah.
Oh,
So there was like this whole other like deepness
Yeah.
before because like in a lot of times he was made fun of because like he was talking about
Oh, for
practice
sure.
in
For
there,
sure.
but
Yeah.
there was actually like more depth even to that. So
We've evolved quite a bit since then too, I
yeah,
think. Hopefully.
yeah, yeah.
Hopefully.
Have you ever wondered how a simple change in your classroom can revolutionize learning? At K-12, we believe the physical space is key. When we partnered with Gary Community Schools in Indiana, something incredible happened. Their classrooms were outdated and uninspiring. Using our radically student-centered approach, we reimagined their spaces. The transformation was nothing short of amazing. Teachers saw immediate results, students came back from winter break excited, more engaged, collaboration increased, and overall performance improved. One student even shared, "We have new furniture, it's like Christmas all over again." On the first day back, local media came in to cover the story, capturing the joy and excitement of students discovering their new learning environments. See how we can transform your school today. Visit kay-twelve.com to learn more about our innovative approach. K-12, because every student deserves an inspiring place to learn. Visit kay-twelve.com today.
All
Yeah.
right, realistic or ridiculous. So typically in these, we're talking about like what we know about schools and experiences. There are some school scenes in here, so
Yeah.
maybe we could talk about it here, about how it's represented in media. Was there anything that seemed, very realistic or completely ridiculous for, from our experiences in the show?
I don't know if you would say they were completely ridiculous, but there was just to, relative to school, the it would be very unlikely that you would have the in-depth conversation with a child's uncle like the teacher would have, during that time. Uh,
That's true.
right? Because they're not the primary caregiver. So you would not have those in-depth conversations about a student's performance. So that was a little unrealistic, but that was probably about it from it. The idea that I had to really, once I started watching it, because I am a previous athlete, my kids are athletes, my husband was an athlete, but nobody played soccer, like, or football,
Well,
So
we can call it soccer.
yeah, soccer. Knew nothing about soccer, really didn't. And so when we started watching it, I really paid attention to professional soccer. Like I could go watch a high school game and, understand when they would score or when they would be offsides, but understanding professional soccer in the idea of relegation and all of that type of stuff and how you get promoted after relegation. And it made me kind of do a little bit of a research about, wow, I didn't know that's how it went down. And I think that was pretty realistic with how, you get relegated and then you can get promoted back up. So I think that was, pretty realistic, but it was cool to kind of learn about
Mhm.
in that aspect.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about soccer, Premier League.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it did get me more interested, even to a point where another show that I started watching was Welcome to Wrexham,
Yeah.
which is the one, Ryan Reynolds and
Yep.
Ryan McElhenney bought a team, and it did. I mean, in a lot of ways, it felt like you were watching like real world,
Yep.
like documentary on.
Reality Ted Lasso.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I
yeah.
agree.
There was even a moment where they reference it in Ted Lasso, which kind of mess with your mind a little bit. Okay. I mean, anything, Carla, you thought
No, like
in
I
that
think about,
category?
his son had issues in school, right? Like he got the phone call about was the son bullying and him being gone and everything else, and then how that was handled and him meeting with the teacher. I think that that's super realistic. Not all parents can be present at the same time,
Right.
and be there. Like as a mom and as a primary parent, like can't tell you how many times I've been in an airport having a meeting with a school administrator or a teacher or something like that as it relates to my kids. So I mean there's some realistic components to it. And then to the discovery of like what was really happening in that situation with Ted and his wife. So was he really bullying or what was really happening? And a lot of times we don't know what what takes place in schools. How do you have a different perspective? Because you're in a school all
Right.
day long, but as a parent too, like we just don't know the gravity of what happens on a day-to-day
Right.
basis in
Yeah.
instructional environment. So I think that was realistic in the way that it was rolled out
Yeah.
story wise.
I would agree.
But school, yeah, that's my only thing. That's all I got.
Yeah, the only other school one that I remember too is when they do the assembly where Ted and Roy Kent go
Oh,
to the
yeah, yeah.
local
Oh,
school as
Yeah.
just kind of like community outreach. I
Yeah.
feel like that is pretty
It,
realistic.
for
Like,
sure. For
yeah.
sure.
I
Yeah.
feel
That
like
is
they
realistic.
do, the local
Yeah.
teams do try to do that, and it's
Yeah.
always highlighted on the news, which
Yeah.
that scene is hilarious too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's why Roy Kent gets it for me. I mean, all of that. He's just great.
Yep, yep. Um, okay. I'm gonna skip the next gen that we talk about because it's talk about if it's remade today. It's just a
It
modern
is
one.
today.
But the substitute, would you recast anyone? Would you swap anyone
Oh,
out?
no, I don't think I would.
I don't think I would.
Yeah, especially the main characters because they're just so developed. Yeah, I don't think you could replace somebody. Yeah, that would be rough. I don't think I would. I would like to, if they are coming out with a fourth season, some of those players on the team, were just the way they developed them was awesome. And their role on the team was very exciting to see them, fill that role. Sam Obasanya filled a role, and then,
Mhm.
some of the hair cutting scene, all of that was really quite fun. So I think if they roll out a fourth season, not necessarily a substitute, but I would love to see what type of team they put together and who's still on it and who's coming in and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That was the one I love the character and I thought he did a great job. Was Danny with
Yeah.
the football is
Rojas.
life.
Yeah.
Danny
Oh,
Rojas. But I have not looked him up, but he seemed like he's probably in real life probably 10 years older than the
Yes.
role he was
Yes.
he was playing
Yes.
in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the only one to me that I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, it just seems like he's
Yeah.
probably a lot older.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah, you're right.
But I
I'm
don't know
looking
who
him
I would
up
put in there.
right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, so let's see what his real age is. Um,
He was born in 1991, so
so
Not that
not,
old.
33,
Yeah.
yeah,
32,
like
33, so maybe, but I
Yeah.
felt like those were like I don't know, probably could.
Yeah. Well, Roy Kent was old. Like Roy
Yeah,
Kent
he
was
was.
old for that league. So I think that's, most of
Yeah.
those kids are probably in their 20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, they say that he's compared to though another soccer player out of Guadalajara who played in Mexico before moving to England to play in the Premier League. So his
Oh,
character is depicted after somebody, Javier Hernandez or
Hmm. Okay.
Churrito is what his nickname was. But it doesn't look like he's gone on to do anything. So
All right, so there's two categories they have left. One called hags, which
yeah.
I don't know if you see this, but I feel like this is like the new thing that every kid puts in the yearbook. The sign they'll be hags, so have a great summer
Yeah. Yes.
on there. But are there any comments that you would want to write or hope that gets remembered for this show? Like when, it's 20 years later and you pull it out, like what is that lasting impact of this movie or this series?
Yeah. I think, just those leadership nuggets. Be a goldfish would be one probably that would be one to remember. Be
oh,
a
we didn't even talk about in the one-liners the be a
Oh
goldfish.
yeah, that is a
be a
great one.
goldfish.
How did we miss that?
Yeah, I know. That would be a good one. And I think that would probably, if you said that, it would refer back to Ted Lasso. I mean, not a lot of people knew that reference before the show. So that would be one. And I think the other, just the broader legacy is, gosh, so many, like how to be a good leader, you know, so many lessons there. So I think that would be the other, the leadership lessons or the leadership nuggets that he always left everywhere he went. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, his whole mentality of like it's not about winning or losing, but becoming the
Yeah,
best versions of ourselves.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
I think too, if you look at it and you look at the different characters, I mean, change is something that you saw in every character from the way that they were depicted in the very beginning, whether or not it's Jamie, whether or not it's Roy, Keeley, Rebecca. Like, think about what an
Mhm.
asshole Rebecca was. Like,
Yeah,
she
yeah,
was a jerk and
yeah,
she was doing it with ill intent, but at the end of the day, to walk away and to know like how invested she was in every person and every player, I mean, it, it's never too late to reinvent yourself or to pivot
Yeah.
when you're going about things the wrong way. Like, I
yeah,
think
100%. Or it's never too late to be a good person. Never too late to be a good person
exactly, yeah.
and to
Yeah.
figure it out. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know
think
if we're looking at inspiration, right?
Yeah, the
yeah.
whole thing is inspiration. That would be tough. That would be tough to pinpoint one particular thing. I mean, the whole scene when he's with Trent Krim and he's in the restaurant
In the
eating the hot,
restaurant, yeah.
yeah,
Like
eating the hot, I think it was Indian food that they were eating, and he's dying, by putting this stuff into his mouth and his body, but it just articulates what he was trying to say. It's not about the wins and losses, it's about making people around you feel good and be the best versions of themselves. So
Mhm.
that's a huge legacy, I think, that this show
yeah.
has.
What I think would be interesting, especially the third season, they really it felt like they were trying to use the show as like to influence society
Oh, for sure.
in a way.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
wonder in 20 years what that's gonna look like.
right.
Like when somebody watches that of being like why are they like
Yeah.
talking
Why
about
are they
like
so concerned about that? Evolve,
deleting
Yeah,
photos and
yeah,
things so they
yeah,
don't like some of those yeah, it'll be interesting to see like how well that holds up.
right.
Um, but at the time, like I think we all felt like like it was like yeah, I feel like in some ways it's even already
Yeah.
aging
I
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that time too, remember that was the height of
Yeah,
COVID time. People,
exactly.
you
Yeah.
know, hated lots of things. I mean, they hated lots of things about their life at that time. And
Hmm.
so to have the kind of, the goodness of people kind of come out, it's a time when we
Yeah.
needed it. And I think that will stand the test of time because there's always awful people.
Yeah.
I mean, no
There
matter
are.
how many good people there are in the world, there's a ton more good than there are bad, but there's always awful people. So,
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
down because of awful
Yeah,
people.
I do think for me, like that lasting legacy is a little bit of like understanding the dynamic and the time
Yeah,
that it was happening in. Like,
Yeah.
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
whole COVID era. Yeah, that
Yeah.
this was kind of like that spark of positivity in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so the last category, it's the where are they now category, but I think I'm gonna switch it because maybe we just make predictions of what we think is gonna happen in season
I
four.
like that idea. I really like that idea. I think Rebecca, I'm going to say the obvious. I think Rebecca and Roy Kent become romantically involved.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, stop it. What happens to Keeley?
wow.
Wait, did I forget something in the end?
Yeah. I think she
Wow.
just goes off on her own. Yeah. I think she just goes off on her own. And I think it's Rebecca and Roy. Cause there was nuances there, like
Yeah, yeah, there
the,
was this mutual respect,
there
like,
was, there
yeah,
was. And the one liner when he said, they went out on a mutual double date and, she was like, he's fine, he's fine. And
Oh, and he said,
remember, don't you
don't.
dare, don't you dare settle for fine. And he said,
Yeah.
he says you should, and it was such a great one liner. And it was like, yeah,
yeah.
that might be a possibility. I'll
Ooh,
throw that out there.
Ooh, I wouldn't have seen that, Heidi, at
yeah.
all.
I'm going to throw that out there.
Yeah,
I
see,
mean,
it will be interesting because I do feel like they were so intent on this being 3 seasons that they would drop things that would show up even a season later.
Right.
I Yeah, I don't know. I wonder what they're gonna pull in. That's a great one. That's a
Yeah.
I mean, do we just assume Roy or that Ted comes back?
Well, you almost have to, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think he comes back, but I think he comes back in a different role than coach. Like he comes back in a role that
as an owner, what
yeah,
if Rebecca brings him in as an owner,
yeah,
and
like a
then you have Nathan, right? I
yep,
mean, we haven't even taled about Nathan.
I
Yeah,
know.
That's a whole different topic. But you got
yeah,
Nathan, you got Jamie, you got Roy.
Yeah, Nate the Great. And I think you can, and you've got, because Roy Kent took over kind of that
yeah.
role. So yeah, I
So has
think,
Roy become head coach,
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
and then Ted comes back in some? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's not the coach. Maybe he just kind
Yeah,
of comes and goes, or
yeah, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It'll be
He's
interesting for sure.
he's got to come back as a part franchise owner. Because
Yeah.
you think about it, right? The money has no bearing for Rebecca. She doesn't care. It's her ex-husband's money. She wants to abolish all of it, not necessarily the
Hmm.
financial component of it, but she didn't care enough about the money to destroy the team. So
Right.
does she care enough about the money not to bring someone else in and just be like, hey, here's a portion of this.
Yeah.
It's fabulous and we're going to be great partners because they ended up being great partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Mm.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What if they come to America? What if he brings some of those characters
I don't think we
to
should watch it
to
then.
Kansas?
I just think
Well,
we
there's
should
no,
boycott it.
there's no way
Well,
that,
what if it's the other way? What if like Ted or she buys like an MLS team
oh
in
God.
Kansas City,
Oh,
and all these characters are coming to Kansas City?
yeah. I think that would be tough. That would
Yeah,
be,
I don't think we should watch it then. Let's
yeah.
just hope your prediction doesn't happen.
Yeah. 'Cause part of what makes the show work is that Midwesterner, weirdness that we have going against that British humor, that really kind of
Right.
dark, funny British humor, that play on that was what made it so entertaining sometimes. So I think you still need
Sure.
to have that. So maybe, they are coming over here because that is odd, that play on that. So we'll see. That's
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah. All right.
If they do, I'm not watching. I'm just putting my foot down because I do think that that was one of the biggest things for me, Heidi, is the connection of, like Ted just comes in and they're like, what the hell is with this guy?
Yeah.
And I forget what they called him. Did they call him a wanker or something like that? I
Wanker,
don't even
yeah,
remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
wanker, and that was his term of endearment for a while there after that, because
Yeah, and they hated him,
yeah,
so
yeah. Well, and there's that scene where Roy like makes fun of him. He's like, "I'm just howdy dowdy," kind of, yeah,
Like
from
shooting this.
yeah, yeah. And he's got the finger pistols going, So yeah, I loved that kind of. And British humor is very dark sometimes. It's
Yeah.
and it's very crude and entertaining, to us Americans. So I think that play on that will be tough if they don't utilize that same scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to see
Yeah, me too.
what they
I hope
come
it
up
comes
with.
to fruition for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, all right. I mean, as far as real world, as far as like, one before we talk, like what's going on there in your world as superintendent, but even with Ted Lasso, like I know you've actually like incorporated it. We've incorporated it in some ways. Talk about
Yeah.
how you actually
So
brought it.
so I was, I always do a book with my leadership team, my admin team to start the school year just around professional learning. And I usually, sometimes I'll let them pick a book, and sometimes, we do literature circles, there's 4 of them that have the same book, and we kind of talk about our individual books. And then there's sometimes where I just pick a book. And this year I just picked the book. And it was Lead It Like Lasso. And it's such an easy read. It's not a leadership book, especially if you watched the show, because there's so many references that you can go back to in the book, in the scenes. And it just gives you some great vision setting exercises in there. If you need to set a vision for your building or your team or your company or whatever that may be, there's some vision setting exercises in there. And there's really, who do you identify with? Like they have a leadership trait, quality in there, and they list out Ted, and they list out Rebecca, and they list out Roy. And then, where do you find yourself, and which combination of leader are you? And then in the end, they just talks about, how you wrap that all up into, getting people to move and do what you want them to do as a leader. So it was great. And so we did that with our leadership team. We read that book. We just, finished up. We kind of read probably in fourths. We read a fourth of it, but we finished it up by the end of the year, this calendar year. And then we, watched a few episodes to kind of make us laugh when things get tough, because they can do that in this profession. We used it as levity, and it was a good exercise, and I highly recommend it. And there's no shortage of books out there on Ted Lasso. The one that we picked, there's a lot of other ones too. So yeah, but we did it with our admin team, and I think it was a great exercise.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, as Carla, as far as like our world, I've actually used this as an example too, because in the world of like the environment matters and how they were coming in and trying to change the culture. And literally the first thing they did was they went in and they rearranged the office. They tried to deal with all like the maintenance issues, like the shower and stuff like that. And then they put up the sign,
Yep.
the believe sign,
Yep.
and how like those changes matter to drive culture change in there. And and we talk about it all the time in these learning environments. It's, you can talk about, say, having more of like a student-centered approach or having flexible learning spaces, but then if you send your teachers back into a room that they've been in for 20 years and it's exactly the same, it's really hard for them to implement that type of culture change.
Well, and just honoring the little things too, like you can look at any study out there, and it's not about how much money people make that stay a part of organizations. It's about how they feel when they're there and how they're valued. And I think when you use that Ted Lasso approach, you want to make everyone around you a better version of themselves. So the end goal is that everybody becomes a better person, or a better leader, or a better teacher, or a better coach, or a better person as a student. So I think there's lots of lessons there that you can kind of refer back to. But for sure, I think it crosses all genres when it comes to professions.
All right. Well, Heidi, before we wrap up, anything in your world that's going on in Fenton, or things that you're excited about, or things that are keeping you up at night? Like what's your reality these days?
Yeah, well, there's lots that keeps me up at night, but I think the cool thing that we have going on in Fenton is just, we have a great strategic plan that is really driving a lot of what we're doing. And as of late, our focus has been, getting kids post-secondary ready and making sure that we have an option for every kid. So there's so many cool post-secondary things going on right now. We just developed a new pre-apprentice program so that our kids, our high school seniors, can take a pre-apprentice class, which gets them all of their certifications before they can start into a skilled trade. And that's not been a focus for Fenton before. We've not really put a lot of emphasis on the trades and any type of like a post-secondary training. We have an early middle college. We have university partnerships for dual enrollment and early middle college programs. So we've never really done a lot with the trades. So we're really trying to kind of do that. And we have a couple of great partners in our community that want to take those pre-apprenticeship kids and give them jobs. And we're in a work management kind of program where they're getting out and getting experience and seeing if there's a trade out there that they want to do. So there's lots of exciting things. We have a great community. It's a small but mighty community, and we have lots of great community partners that help us kind of get our goals through. I think what keeps me up at night is just, everything that you just have this, diametric, just complete divide when it comes to how our society is. And so I think that keeps you up at night. Plus school safety. I mean, always worrying about kids and whether they're safe and whether you're doing enough at school to make sure if somebody is in trouble or not in trouble. That's been a huge concern as of late.
Yeah. How cool is it, Heidi, that you guys are doing that? Because, you think about, I have 2 older kids. I think I said that earlier, right? One 26, one 19. 26-year-old, always the path was going to be college. 19 said, that's just not my thing, right? And that's hard because as people, we push for college, and that's what you hear as a kid growing up. That's what I heard, but not everyone has aspirations to go and do
Yep.
it. So to recognize how many kids are lost in that post-secondary phase and don't necessarily know what their next steps are, or to have a path forward that the district is looking at that. It's a beautiful thing. Small but mighty is not all districts are focusing on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, outstanding. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
doing this. Thank
This
you
was
for
fun.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was
It was
fun.
fun.
Thanks for
Yeah.
what you do as superintendent. We always talk about like the role in the communities of the superintendent we just cannot be. It is huge. I mean, it's
Yeah.
such a prominent role. It's typically leading one of the biggest organizations in the area, but you're almost, like you're also like a politician in a
Oh,
way,
yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
dealing with
I
so many
know.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a hard job. It's a hard job. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. That's for sure.
yeah.
You've got to really love the people you do it for and with. Because if you don't, I don't know why you would do it. Quite honestly, I really don't. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. And, well, for the listeners, wherever you're listening, watching this, if you're not already a subscriber, please hit subscribe wherever you're at. Feel free to rate, review, give us feedback. And betterlearningpodcast.com is our hub for everything. It's where we get a lot of suggestions and people who are interested in being on the show or recommendations. If you have a movie that you want to talk about, put that on there. We have forums on there as well. As we wrap this up, the podcast is all about how do we improve education and how do we break down silos. So I know we're doing this in more of a fun format today, but at the end of the day, it's why we do it. It's what we all care about. It's what unifies us, that we want to give every kid the opportunity to succeed. I mean, if we tie it back to Ted Lasso, it's like it's not about their grades. It's making sure that we're giving every kid the best opportunity to become the best versions of themselves. And
100%.
that's what I love about this better learning community that we've been part of. So
Glad to be a part of today.
yeah, Carla, Heidi,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah,
Guys
thank
have a
you.
good one.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Kelly Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.